Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off with a very interesting discovery. Someone found a prototype version of WWE BRAWL for the Nintendo 3DS. Now this game was never officially released, but based on the prototype footage, it seems the game would have done pretty well. If you are curious about this one and wanted to see it in action, I'll drop a link to the video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. I've got no word as to whether or not this is going to be dumped for the greater good of game preservation. Next up, we're quickly talking about PlayStation 2 emulation with PCSX2, and PCSX2 just got a small update that you might appreciate. And that update here is a number of DuckStation backports, including adding an option to pause the emulator when the controller is disconnected. At the time of filming, the latest version of PCSX2 is version 1.7.5826. And speaking about updates, next up we're talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Ryujinx. We talked about Ryujinx just the other day, and they've got even more updates. So as of version 1.1.1317, which is the latest version at the time of filming, they've improved some GPU stuff. For example, it improves performance on systems with dedicated GPUs in Catherine Full Body, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity version 1.0.0, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and also Tears of the Kingdom. And it fixes character shadows being too dark on the equip screen in Splatoon 3. And speaking about Nintendo, next up we're talking about Nintendo. And it appears that Nintendo has just purchased Shiver Entertainment, and they purchased it from Embracer. So in a statement, Nintendo says, under the purpose of acquisition, Nintendo aims to secure high-level resources for porting and developing software titles. Now, for those who may be unaware, Shiver Entertainment brought Mortal Kombat 1 as well as Hogwarts Legacy to the Switch. Although MK1 was highly criticized, at the same time this may mean Nintendo is way more serious about bringing games to their platform. Next up, we're talking about an interesting project. It's called Netris. It's open source, it's on GitHub, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. They say it's an open source cloud gaming platform built for you to play together with your friends. A GeForce Now alternative that can be self-hosted. Netris is fairly early on in terms of development. They say it's in its experimental phase, and they're in the process of crafting and testing a variety of features, including Proton GE compatibility, automatic game progress sync, co-op gameplay, and cross-platform play. But it does require a Chrome-based browser. Now, self-hosting currently requires an NVIDIA GPU, and it does use your Steam library. And unless I'm misunderstanding something, if you don't have the option to self-host, there is the Netris Pro version. I could be wrong here. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think there's a space for this? Are you interested in self-hosting your own games? And speaking about Proton, next up we're talking about something that doesn't need to use Proton. And we're talking about the Matrix Awakens technical demo in Unreal Engine 5. And someone's got this up and running on Linux without the need of Proton. If you are curious about this one, I'll drop a link to John Lagostini's itch.io page in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. He's even got a video of this up in action. Now, for reference, John's specs are pretty beefy. He's got an RTX 3090 and a Threadripper 3990X. But at the same time here, the results are fairly impressive. And speaking about YouTube videos, next up we're talking about a brand new one that was just posted about Infuse, which is a Zeebo emulator. This one may be worth checking out if you're a fan of Zeebo. Now, I would argue Infuse is still pretty early on in terms of development, and the developer says they're the only person working on this and it's going to take them some time, so basically be patient. And it is available for Mac, Linux, Windows, the Steam Deck, and even more. Moving on, and we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Citra fork Citra Enhanced, and Citra Enhanced just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, version 1.2.0 is the latest update. There's a whole bunch of changes here, including implementing Arctic-based support. And they've also imported some stuff from Citra MMJ, so hopefully performance on this one has improved. And speaking about Citra MMJ, next up we're talking about Citra MMJ. For those who may be unaware, Citra MMJ stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano. and it's a performance-based fork of Citra for Android. The new update here has some minor changes that may improve performance. Unfortunately, the changelog isn't that great, but according to Google Translate, they've got Citra updates to fix the problem that some Android systems cannot open game files. And Citra updates fixes crash issues in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and Majora's Mask. Next up, we're still talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation, and this time with Lime 3DS, and Lime 3DS also got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Lime 3DS 2113 is the latest update. On Android, they fixed a settings issue, and in general, they added a real-time audio playback option. Interestingly here, the real-time audio playback option was borrowed from Citra Enhanced and tweaked a little bit. Now, I don't want to say there's fragmentation going around with different versions of Citra forks, but there kind of is at this point in time. If you are looking for some solid versions, Pablo MK7's Citra is right here. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. And Citra MMJ has kind of been its own fork for a while. And in my opinion, both Citra Enhanced and Lime 3DS are kind of borrowing, bundling, and tweaking changes into their respective emulators. Let me know which 3DS emulator you prefer in the comments below. Next up, we're quickly talking about a very interesting collaboration, and Bandai Namco US has just announced that Gundam comes to Call of Duty in Season 4. Let me know your thoughts about this collaboration in the comments below. Do you think it fits? Do you think it makes sense? And do you think it's cool? And continuing to talk about Nintendo 3DS, next up we're talking about Pretendo. For those who may be unaware, Pretendo is a free and open source replacement for Wii U and 3DS servers. And Pretendo just had an amazing announcement. So the first thing is around system notifications, and they say we can now send your 3DS systems notifications using the built-in notifications app. This allows us to deliver news updates right to your console, without needing to be in our Discord server, forum, or even following our social media. You can get all the latest news about the services right from your console you're using it on. And the second thing here is about Street Pass Relay. Street Pass Relay was a feature built into the 3DS which allows users to gain Street Pass from other users, even without physically being near them at the time. With our implementation, Street Pass Relay now works globally, removing the need to be at a physical access point. You can now passively gain passes with other Pretendo users, simply by being online. There are two conditions though. Users have to be using the latest release of Nimbus, and you can only gain passes with people who you're friends with on the 3DS friend server. In my opinion, these are continual big strides forward for Pretendo. Let me know your thoughts about Pretendo in the comments below. Next up, I've got another quick one for you, and this is great news if you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts. Apparently, Kingdom Hearts is headed to Steam. Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix, HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind will be launching on June 13th. As far as I know, the Steam announcement trailer will be premiering on May 21st. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Next up, I've got some more quick stuff for you. This is an update to yesterday's story when we talked about someone getting Windows XP up and running on a 486. Now that version was in German, but they've uploaded an English version to archive.org. And speaking about archive.org, an early prototype of the unreleased black and white creatures for the PSP has surfaced on it. This one, in my opinion, is super weird. They say it features 4 playable characters, 8 different levels, and gameplay is limited to moving around the level and using the hand to make the character dance. And on top of that, also over on archive.org, a prototype of the unreleased Fuzz and Rocket for the Game Boy Advance has also appeared. They say this prototype is very far along, contains much of the game, and was cancelled to being late in the GBA lifespan and not being able to secure a publisher. Arguably, these are a couple of big wins for game preservation. Moving on, and we're talking about something very interesting over on GitHub. It's called PS2 Cam Acolyte. They say this is a lightweight Windows exe for using camera hacks and other cheats and debugging tools on PS2 games running on the PS2 emulator. The developer of this says one of their hobbies is hacking in free cams to old PS2 horror games so they can look at everything. Running this seems simple and straightforward. If you are curious about this one, version 0.01 has just dropped, with support for Kuon, Rule of the Rose, Silent Hill 2, and Silent Hill Origins. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.